If you couldn't pass the exit exam, why should you even be a nurse?
All right, guys, happy Wednesday and welcome back to the Nursing Investigation. I had an interview with Nurse Erica from the Uncorked podcast, which I'll link below. I really admired her bravery because you don't find many people willing to go against the grain, willing to share their platform, willing to have the tough conversation, even if it sparks controversy. Because people like to play the fence. They like to say, oh, I agree with everyone and everything, when nobody really does. I appreciate somebody like that who's willing to do the things others aren't. Especially in this day and age, willing to actually have a conversation one-on-one with me and listen to me before she ever created a video or was ready to place judgment. I really appreciate her also educating me on ways that I could even improve. You can tell a lot about a person, I think, by the way they treat people who can do nothing for them. That's a nurse. And not once did I ever ask her about her grades or if she took an exit exam to come to that conclusion. And I think that says it all. Right now in America, we constantly hear about a shortage of nurses. Hospitals are understaffed. Patients are waiting longer for care. Healthcare workers are having a harder time to union due to lack of support. Even quality of care is lacking, and the healthcare system is stretched thin. Or the job market being at an all-time low and talks about too many people on welfare. This is why my situation affects you, even if you're not going through what I'm going through. At the same time, there are people who completed their nursing education like me and still can't even attempt the licensing exam. And I just wonder, is this by design? Because in my opinion, it feels like a legal way to drive somebody insane by having them do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result from them. I feel like I was literally driven insane. It was psychological warfare. Because now, that's the first thing that they bring up. That is their MO, if you will. Oh, well, we gave her a couple chances. What does that really mean, we gave her a couple chances? We've already hashed this out, and I think you should go back and watch, because this is the thing that ticks everybody off. They're like, well, they gave you a couple chances, and that's, in my opinion, exactly why they did. So on paper, it looks like it was my fault. To me, that is the definition of driving somebody legally insane, having them do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, when in between, no changes are being implemented to increase that score. If I didn't meet their benchmark by that much the first, second, or third time, why would I the fourth, let alone the second, third, or fourth time? You know what I'm saying? And this is why I can't get my license, because the school literally won't let me. If the school released my name to the Board of Nursing today, I could take my NCLEX. I did everything that was required of me. The only reason I can't sit for my NCLEX is because the school literally will not confirm my education and give my certificate of completion to the Board of Nursing, which you need to sit for your NCLEX. Some might think, that's great, I want the best nurses, but I think that's what sheep think. That's what I think the elites want you to think. In real life, the best nurses aren't created out of test scores, but who they are in reality. How many times have you turned on the news and a nurse had her children? How many times did you turn on the news and there was a pediatric nurse hurting infants? How many times have you turned on the news and a nurse had his parents? Being a good test taker does not equal being a good nurse. Answering multiple choice doesn't equal how a nurse will react in real life without those options in front of her. She learns it. She was given a chance to learn it to become a good nurse, and by preventing me from getting my license to gain even more experience to become a great nurse, I was blocked. My career, my education, moving forward in life was literally put on pause. Sometimes it feels like the expectation is simple. Don't ask questions, don't challenge the system, and just follow the rules and move on. Be a sheep. Have a herd mentality. Be a conformist. Be compliant intellectually. The dark side of the world preys on this kind of mindset. If it's you, don't feel bad, because it was once me too. But that's how I ended up in so many unjust situations, and I want to make sure you don't. So I look back in history and I really think about it. How did we get here as a whole? History shows us that progress has never come from people who blindly accept the status quo. Create a GoFundMe, just repost one video, share someone else's story that's safer to make yourself feel like you're doing something. Real progress happens when you say, I'm not a sheep, I'm not going to do the easy thing, I'm going to be brave, I'm going to be courageous, I'm going to be a whistleblower for the greater good. Imagine completing years of your nursing education, finishing every class, every clinical, every requirement, and still being told you can't even attempt to get your license for your profession. What was the point? Welcome back to another episode of Clarissa, where she most definitely is going to break it down and explain it all. Before we get into the tough questions from my interview, I want to clear up something that keeps getting misunderstood. This conversation is not about GPA, it's not about failing a class, it's not about bad behavior. The real issue is the exit exam and how it was implemented. A test that exists for one purpose and one purpose only, to determine whether a graduate, aka those students who completed nursing school, who should be graduates, can continue to be graduates and even be allowed to sit for their NCLEX, because on my transcript, somebody pointed this out to me. My transcript is complete as is. That exit exam is not listed on my transcript. I got no credit for that. I got no time served for that. It does not affect my transcript at all. So essentially, something in the shadows, I feel, is falsifying my academic record. Because the only thing that exit exam did was withdraw my conferral date and withdraw my diploma. How is that possible when it's not even on my official transcript? The exam itself doesn't give a license, but it's acting like the gatekeeper to getting my license. It doesn't measure clinical performance in the real world, and there is no measure by the Board of Nursing deeming it feasible to do so. Its only function is to decide whether a student who already completed nursing school is allowed to attempt the exam. Isn't the Board of Nursing in charge for that? After you're done with your school and your education, you've done everything the board requires you to do. It's in the board hands what happens after that. And then after you get your license, it's in your employer's hands what happens after that. The way the school, in my opinion, is trying to control and dictate my profession feels diabolical. Our relationship should have ended after I completed my education that the Board of Nursing requires me to complete. So let's get into the first controversial topic. You didn't complete the program, Clarissa. Oh my God. You didn't complete the program, Clarissa. Guys, I'm really trying to stay neutral here, and I'm trying to stay empathetic that everybody doesn't know law, everybody doesn't know how the world works, because I mistakenly assumed that I'm not very smart, and if I know something, everybody else should know it too. But that's not true at all. When people say you didn't complete the program, it really just lets me know that they have a herd mindset, that they're a conformist, that they don't do their own research, and they've been led to believe what they've been told to believe. So one argument people make is that I didn't complete the graduation requirements, but the reality is I completed the coursework, clinical hours, and the training to become a nurse. The barrier here isn't the education. The education is complete. I wouldn't even be taking an exit exam if I hadn't completed my education. The barrier is a single internal exam that prevents somebody from even attempting the license to test. You might as well tell me I need a pilot license at this point too, because it would serve the same purpose. Oh, C's can get degrees, but they can't give you your license. One argument I keep hearing is you didn't complete the requirements. But here's the problem with that argument. If C grades are considered passing throughout a program and allow students to progress for years, let alone you accepting students with 2.0 GPAs, you can't suddenly say those same grades mean the student didn't really complete the program or move the benchmark at a later date. If you can't pass the exit, you cheated your way through nursing school. Actually, the opposite is true. If I cheated, why would I be getting C's throughout nursing school? If I cheated, why didn't I meet the benchmark for the exit exam? Because you know what? Girls who actually cheat do meet the benchmark. And nobody ever questions that. These exit exams are so hard. Girls have to cheat to pass them unless you're somebody who's being supported throughout nursing school, unless you're just out of high school, unless you're just naturally smart, you have a great IQ, you're an honor roll student, or you've been in the medical field for years, or you've been through nursing school before. Like, if you're somebody like me, this was my first stepping stone into nursing school. I had been in the medical field, but I had been working up the ladder, so this was the highest level of completion I was going for. So I really didn't know everything, and I feel like there is no way average girls like me are passing this exit exam. I know girls would cheat on these exit exams, and that's how they passed. You want to know why? Because they didn't want to end up like me. They didn't want to not meet that benchmark honestly and be prevented from taking their NCLEX. How backwards is that? Somebody who's honest, which I think integrity matters more than a nurse than a test score, but that's another conversation. But girls are having to cheat because these exit exams are so hard. Why wouldn't they? They see what happens to girls like me who don't meet the policy's benchmark honestly, and then are prevented from getting their NCLEX after completing their entire nursing education. Why would anybody want that to be them? Maybe you're older, like a lot of the girls in my class who were older, they were fine because they had a lot of life experience. They've been in the medical field for a long time. Or, they had husbands. They were able to just focus on this. Maybe they didn't have kids. Maybe they were right out of high school. Maybe they've been through nursing school before. Like, I think there's a lot of variables to girls who pass these, or their school prepared them. So I don't think the exit exam proves competency. The NCLEX is the only board-approved exam to declare competency for licensing. And we talked about this in the interview too. Did you know Australia doesn't even require a nursing license? Once you complete your nursing education, you're a nurse. Because that is what becoming a nurse is, completing your education. Now, it's neither here nor there whether you need a license or not. I'm fine taking the NCLEX. It is what it is. But it's just a wild concept to think if I moved to Australia that maybe I could be a nurse. But because I reside in the United States, I'm being blocked from even sitting for my licensure. Like, does that make sense? Like, when you travel and you go to Australia, you're being treated by a nurse basically in the similar position I am, just with a nursing education. And that's fine. Nobody's going to say anything about that. But just because I'm here and there's a policy in fine print saying, for example, she's not competent enough, what it's portraying, like I'm not meeting a certain standard, I'm not good enough to get my license, is how I see it. Like, that's just absurd. That's just the policy. And to me, throughout history, people have defended unfair systems by saying that's just the rule. Crazy. There would be no progress in the world. Like, Jim Crow laws would still exist if nobody stood up against unfair systems. Do you not recognize that? The Pregnancy Fairness Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity, like so many things would not exist today. You, as a woman probably watching this, wouldn't even be able to have a credit score and vote if somebody didn't challenge unfair systems that were once a rule. Some of the most important legal changes in this country happened because somebody challenged those rules. So nobody's saying that nursing shouldn't have standards. The real question isn't whether schools can have standards. Of course they can. The question is whether a policy that prevents graduates from even attempting the NCLEX deserves scrutiny because it's inconsistent and irreliable. Nursing schools don't even offer all nursing schools don't even give an exit exam. Other nursing schools that do don't use it as a gatekeeper to sitting for your NCLEX. And then I hear nurses 10, 20 years ago didn't even have to take an exit exam. So how are you saying that an exit exam is so important and so high almighty, it proves competency and you need it to pass your NCLEX when it's literally factually not true? And then on top of that, if not every nurse has to take an exit exam, where's the fairness and consistency in that? We all have to take A&P, we all have to take the fundamentals of nursing, but we all don't have to take exit exams? That is the problem. It's not necessary. And the Board of Nursing, ASIN, they've all came out and said they do not support the exit exams being used in this way. Even the makers of these tests say the same thing. But yet, for-profit schools like Jersey College of Nursing have utilized these exams, like it did with me, to prevent me from getting my license, regardless. So I literally have to go to court and sue them because they have refused up to this point to give me my diploma so I can sit. And then back to the whole competency part and the NCLEX. The NCLEX is the only board-approved exam that can grant you your license. That can say, okay, this student can now be a nurse. Exit exams have different makers. They have different versions. Somebody may get HCI version 1. Somebody may get HCI version 2. All of these exit exams are not regulated. Nobody knows, where these questions are coming from, if they're even accurate. I could be in practical nursing and get an RN question. There is no telling where these questions are coming from, if they're for somebody like me, if I should even be answering them, if they're in my scope of practice. Like, there's so many things because it's unregulated. When you take the NCLEX, it's governed by the Board of Nursing. They know what's going in there. They fact-checked it. Everybody's getting similar questions. Everybody's getting the same hardness of a question, if that makes sense. Like, everybody's getting the same level of questions depending on how you take your test. Like, this is thoroughly thought out to create nurses, not prevent them from ever getting their license. This is literally not, exit exams are not creating better nurses. It's creating artificial NCLEX pass rates. If I see one more school boast about NCLEX pass rates, I was just on Jersey College of Nursing's social media. They're literally saying 100% NCLEX pass rate, 100% NCLEX pass rate. If I see that one more time, I'm going to lose my shit. Do not be a sheep. Do not have a herd mentality. Always do your research, please. I beg of you, before you go to nursing school, understand what you are getting into. I would have never went to a for-profit school, let alone a private school. I would have just went to a community college. It stuck out to me because they offered flexibility. They offered night classes. You could do part-time. You could do full-time. You could do your LPN and bridge to RN and all these things. None of that was worth never being able to sit for my license. None of it. Oh, well, nursing schools can't lower the bar. You're right. The nurses practicing do. Those that go on to get their license and lose it. Those that are sued for nursing malpractice, let alone arrested or go crazy in their personal life and lose competency, because it can happen to any of us at any time. I've seen a lot in life. There's a girl just like you living the same life, and tomorrow the neurons in her head could synapse and something crazy could happen. The medication she's on could make her snap. Nursing school is not lowering the bar by not using exit exams as a gatekeeper for NCLEX. That is factually true. I don't think nursing exit exams lower the bar of nursing by not making students pass them to one of the highest probabilities. I think using it does. Because you're only pushing out those who can take a good test. And you're creating a nursing shortage. And you're adding to the people that are in debt and going back on welfare. And now that's coming out of our pockets when they literally want to and should be working. We'll get into that at a later date. Trust me, I found some things that I shouldn't have found. So no, exit exams don't prove competency. So no, exit exams don't prove competency again, because you know what? If you fail the NCLEX, you can take it again and again and again. And if you can't in your state, you can do your reciprocity and take it in another state until you get it. There are ways. You don't go back to nursing school and, oh my God, I can't. If exit exams prove competency, then why doesn't every school utilize it? Or people say, oh, nursing school is made to weed out the best. You'll start with 30 girls and you'll end up with 10. Nursing programs do have rigorous standards. Many students don't progress if they fail courses, clinicals, if they don't show up, if they don't take or they fail required exams by the Board of Nursing. That's fair to say weeding out. Yes, that happens with every cohort. You start with 30, every semester somebody is not going to make it. That's fair. But this happens throughout the program, throughout course grades, skills evaluations, and clinical performance. This does not happen to those that have already completed nursing school. You're not weeding out anything. You're just inflating your school's NCLEX pass rate. That exit exam has nothing to do with my competency to be a nurse. Now, if I got like 100, like on a HCI, right? You want to get around like a 900, give or take, right? On the HCI, that's like a great probability. Let's say I got like 100 or a 50, then I'd probably be like, you know what, Clarissa, maybe this isn't for you. Or if I got like a 10% on ATI, maybe this isn't for you. But to say I can't take my NCLEX because I only had about a 75% probability of passing the NCLEX the first time is literally diabolical. Nursing schools don't offer or don't use it as a gatekeep, so where's the fairness in that? Not, like I said, not all nursing schools utilize this. Not all nursing students have taken exit exam, especially our OG nurses. So at my school, it's called weeding out. At others, it's called luck. Like, that literally makes no sense. Do you see where the disconnect is? Like I said, we all take A&P. We all take the fundamentals of nursing because the Board of Nursing requires it. You literally need that foundation to be a nurse. You need that education. Nobody needs an exit exam. That is the disconnect. Where is the fairness in that? I was in communications about a nursing program at Temple University, and the girls are coming up on taking their exit exams. Temple does make you take an exit exam, but from my understanding, you have to get a 70% to pass it. So when I look at my own probability and I had a 75%, you're saying if I had went to Temple, I would have been able to get my license. Do you see the disconnect in that? And then also, they're preparing them to take this exam because that's right. You literally have to be prepared to take these types of questions. It's not all about the knowledge, but you have to know how to answer questions when A, B, and C, and D are all correct, but you need to know the best answer, the safest answer, which one's the nurse's job and not the doctor's job. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, I had asked, what happens to those girls who don't meet that 70% benchmark? They keep taking it. Nobody who's made it to the end of nursing school is literally not getting their license. Like, that's insane. So when you say, Clarissa, just pick another school, why would I be co-signing bad behavior? That is what so many students did before me, and look what happened. It got another student in the same predicament. When you don't stand up against injustice, it allows it to continue. And if I had done that, I'd basically be saying everything I did doesn't matter. The school is right. This is just what it is. Are you kidding me? That investment, that time, that money, my professional career, that is irreplaceable. I'm not talking about getting scammed on Facebook Marketplace for $50. Like, sorry, you'll be fine. This is literally your academic record. This is tied to me forever. This is financial aid. This is FERPA. This is injustice. This is my 14th Amendment. It's so many things. This is so serious. At one point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have to take the years I took saving up to go to nursing school to do it all again. So that's exactly what I did. I'm like, okay, I guess there really isn't an option. I guess I'm just going to go back to school. And you know what? My credits are not transferable. What do you know? Again, the same pattern of insanity, a cycle to keep me from doing anything but questioning the system. And I refuse to do that. Oh, but the school's accreditation. If they just let everybody take the NCLEX, what if they lose accreditation? You mean trust their own program? Trust the program that let these students into the school? Trust the program that pushed them along, that said C's were okay, and now at the end you need the highest probability of passing the NCLEX to take your license? I'm sorry, does that actually make sense to you? Accountability for their own students instead of making a singular student responsible? There's better ways to protect accreditation than making a student responsible for the school's accreditation. Might as well put me on payroll at this point if that's how you want to do it. Like, does that make oh my God, guys, please think for yourselves. Please, for the love of God. I'm upset today. I'm upset today not because I don't want anybody to disagree with me. I want you to disagree with me because you're preparing me for maybe things I didn't think about yet that I need to be prepared for, that I need to think about. But on the other hand, certain questions and certain concepts and certain ways of thinking makes me upset because I feel bad for you. I feel bad that you think like that. I feel bad you've been led to believe that you should think a certain way because somebody told you to. You don't have to agree with me, but if you can't have a debate, if you can't see things from another perspective, even at the least, if you think an institution is what's doing, if you think an institution like this is protecting everybody, you are sadly mistaken. To even defend such high power and high money and think they need your support, when if you were in my shoes, you wouldn't be getting theirs, it's just insanity to me. Getting teachers from other schools, from Jersey College, multiple, messaging me, telling me, you're literally not crazy. Like, I'm paraphrasing here, but what I experienced did happen, and them telling me their reasoning behind it, which I can't get into right now, but are you picking up what I'm putting down? If you have internal knowledge about Jersey College of Nursing or any other school you went to and you knew why this was happening, I would love to hear your perspective in that information. It takes a really brave and courageous person to come out and speak the truth against something like that. And most people don't because they're scared. Having students complete nursing school and saying you can't get into your profession doesn't help anybody. In long term, now look what's happened. The truth comes out. The world evolves. We share information. Eventually somebody talks. Just like history has shown, no progress has ever been made by saying silent. Somebody will eventually speak out and say, hey, this is what first-time NCLEX pass rates mean. This is where you can look at how many people entered the school and how many people left. How many people actually completed the program. It's not making you look good anymore by keeping, let's say, 20 girls from taking the NCLEX, hypothetically, in a class of 30. My proposal is, if your argument is the school needs to protect their accreditation, I agree with you. I don't want my school to lose accreditation. That does me no service either. And even if I'm an alumni and I went on with my life, got my license, and it wouldn't affect me anymore, I still wouldn't want to be tied to a school who lost their accreditation. Like, that wouldn't be my preference. There's ways you can support your students in doing better than just saying, hey, you know what, you're not worth it. Your journey's over. Like, that's just diabolical. They should be offering a viable option to say you have a completed nursing education, but you can't enter your profession isn't viable for anyone. Keep taking it until you get a fair score. Let's offer them remediation. And I don't mean remediation by repeating the program and paying. I mean remediation by letting them take the exam again, lowering the benchmark to a fair score. You should not need the highest probability of passing the exit exam the first time to take it. You just need a good chance. And I think a C is a good chance. In most nursing schools, a C is passing unless you're going to like one of those, all due respect, uppity schools, where they only take, the highest achievers, which is fine. But you know what I'm saying? Like, a 70% should be fine. And then for the girls that don't pass it, let them keep retaking it. Give them remediation. show us you did 1,000 questions, do UWorld, or we'll create a study guide. Like, there's just so many better options than saying, we get to take all your money, we get to keep our reputation, we get to keep our accreditation, and you get nothing. Like, how is that fair practice? And then people also ask me, what makes your case have merit? Or if I'm in the same situation, what do I do? Since I'm in an active lawsuit, I can't go around telling people what to do, but I can most certainly tell you what I researched and where I started with this investigation. And just like we say, high school should offer, real life situations for students. Like, they should offer, how they offer, like, home economics, where you learn how to cook, or you have a class on parenting and you have that baby that cries and you get judged on how well you take care of it. Like, classes like that prepare you for real life. I feel like high school should have classes like this, whether it's accounting, learning how to pay your bills, learning how to change a tire, or for my situation, you should learn like the basics of contract law and what it looks like if somebody tries to sue you, how to defend yourself, like, everybody should know this. So for my case specifically, I want you to know something. And I started out pro se, which was so embarrassing, but I'll share that with you because I learned so much and I don't regret it at all. Courts don't decide cases just because something is unfair. And that's something that I struggled to understand. Like, you have to have a foundation of your case before emotional distress even comes into play. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be some sort of injury that caused that damage, if you will. Like, I can't just say, oh, I'm distressed. Oh, yeah, like, you had a hard life, sorry, but the court doesn't care if you have no foundation. They look for specific legal grounds leading to that emotional distress per se. So, unfairness can be within the umbrella, but you have to have that foundation. These are general topics that are used in court every day that you can apply to your life and whatever you're going through. It still may be applied. I just want to be cleared. These topics aren't just about nursing education and suing for what I am. Breach of contract. In my case, for example, when students enroll in school, there's usually a contractual relationship based on things like an enrollment agreement, your catalog, their marketing materials, their handbooks. If a school had promised a pathway to graduation or licensure eligibility and then apply the requirements inconsistently or in a misleading way, that can sometimes be argued as a breach of contract. Courts will often examine whether an institution followed its own internal policies, let alone schools are state regulated. Somebody can't make you sign a contract saying you're going to commit fraud because that's illegal. It breaks down much more than that, but you get the gist. Second, what is misrepresentation? A claim may have merit if a student argues they relied on said statements by the school when deciding to enroll. So this legal battle started way before I signed any contract. In my case, when you tell me XYZ and XYZ is relayed a different way in the contract, let alone fine print, or it's ambiguous, that's problematic. So this could involve questions like, were students clearly told about the consequences of the exit exam? Was it clearly relayed to me but that my name would not be released to the Board of Nursing? They would not be giving a certificate of completion to the Board of Nursing. Were the expectations presented accurately? Did the school create a reasonable belief that completing said program would lead to that licensure eligibility? If information was misleading or incomplete or ambiguous, courts can sometimes consider that under misrepresentation theories. Another thing I researched was fraudulent concealment. I was like, what is that? So another argument that can sometimes be used and raised in education cases and many others is concealment of important information. That would involve such questions like, did the institution possess information students did not have? Was that information material to a student's decision to enroll? Was it intentionally withheld? Evidence of internal knowledge can be significant in those claims. So when I talk about teachers with an S on the end coming to me and saying XYZ, that matters. I love a good whistleblower when it's fighting up against injustice. I seriously commend you for your bravery and your courageousness, especially when you're trying to help somebody who needs it, Unconscionable terms. A lot of people overlook this one, a lot of people. So listen to this. Courts occasionally review whether contractual terms are unreasonably so one-sided or unfair, it would literally shock your conscience. So a policy can exist in a handbook, but courts can still examine whether the student had a meaningful notice and time to review it, or if it creates such an extreme imbalance between the parties. This can be called unconscionability. Consumer protection laws, especially in my case, especially with an educational institution that's going on to license nurses, that affects public policy, that could be systemic across the state, if not nationwide. It can fall under consumer protection statutes like the 14th Amendment, which prohibit deceptive or unfair practices. These laws can apply if an organization markets a program in a way that could mislead a reasonable customer. Why it matters beyond my case is because this isn't just about one school. Policies that control who gets to enter the nursing profession affect the entire healthcare system. When someone completes years of education but is prevented from even attempting their licensing exam, it raises questions about how the profession regulates entry. So these students are put under an amount of pressure that influences cheating. They're so desperate not to end up like me. So are the results even accurate? Are really the best nurses entering the field? Or what about the students who aren't being let into the field? Is that causing more damage economically nationwide or to the healthcare system, creating those nursing shortages? There's a lack of nurses being let into the field to make those nurse to patient ratios better, to increase the quality of care, and also to have more support in situations where nurses need to be treated better. When you implement arbitrary testing and what I feel like setting students up to fail, that should raise concern for integrity and fair practice. This isn't just about me. Cases like the NAACP of Camden County East versus Folk Management to Brown versus the Board of Education, when we talk about the Jim Crow laws that once existed, to the 14th Amendment, remind us that when systems are unclear or unfair, it often harms the most vulnerable first. And I cannot wait to get into that because it's such an important topic. Injustice was always a rule, but it took someone brave enough to say it shouldn't be. Injustice being a rule should never ever be an excuse to let it go. Some comments from the week. We have Orlaria. I don't let my school bully me into things against policy either. I love this one. It actually made me giggle because I thought it was so spicy and I loved it. At Everything About Haitian. The exit is 10 times harder than the NCLEX. Literally what I keep hearing. And I think that's for a reason. At Day, failed my pre-NCLEX test. I believe he or she is talking about the exit exam. But it wasn't required to graduate, but I did pass my NCLEX the first try. Literally the reality of most students who fail these exams, they go on to pass their NCLEX. At I didn't have to take an exit exam, and I've been a nurse for 22 years. Thank you again. Real life situations show that what I feel about the situation, it's just all smoke and mirrors. At ASB 27, the good nurses during the World War didn't spend too much time on reading books, but spent their time practicing. I love this comment because it's so true. When new nurse grads get into the field, most of them don't know what they're doing, which is fine, but so much don't know what they're doing, like clinically either. Like, don't know how to put a catheter in, don't know how to draw blood, like so many things, because schools are putting so much pressure on the students to just be a good test taker and not actually become a nurse in the real world. I just wanted to put a pause in the series of events to answer the most controversial questions of my Nurse Erica interview, which I will link below. Go ahead and check her out, check out the interview, take part in a conversation, because again, even if you're not in my situation still affects you. We can always use more nurses in the world to help us union when we need it, to make our patient to nurse ratios better, to improve quality of care. It affects the whole healthcare system, let alone economically. There's no reason, people should be on welfare, not advancing in their careers to earn more money and boost the economy and all the things because they've completed everything needed to take their license. They're just being prevented from getting there. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, as always, and of course, taking part in such an important conversation. Bye, guys.